The sun hung low over the crystal forest, scattering 100 colors across the glowing trees. Jack adjusted his helmet visor and squinted at the strange, shimmering landscape. He had seen many alien worlds before, but this one was different. There was a softness to it, a quiet life that felt alive in a way he had never felt before. Every leaf-like crystal shimmered like it was breathing, and the soft hum of energy from the ground beneath him was almost musical. He had been sent by the United Earth Alliance to survey this sector of the colony planet. It was uncharted, dangerous, and rumored to be home to intelligent alien life. Jack was trained to be cautious, to trust his instincts, and yet something about this world drew him forward, curiosity pushing aside fear. As he moved through the crystalline trees, his scanner beeped softly. He paused and checked it. There was movement up ahead, but not the usual wildlife. Something, or someone, was moving through the forest, hurriedly, as if trying to escape. Jack's heart rate increased, but he kept calm. He had faced dangers before, but this felt different. A sudden sound made him freeze, a soft, trembling cry. It was high-pitched, filled with fear, almost human in tone. Jack followed the sound carefully, stepping over glowing roots and avoiding the sharp crystal branches. Then he saw her. A small alien girl, her skin pale with a faint shimmer, was running toward him. Her large, luminous eyes were filled with tears. Her hair flowed behind her in silver streaks that caught the light like liquid metal. She stopped a few meters away, panting and trembling, and raised her hands in a gesture of pleading. "Please, follow me home," she said in broken English, her voice trembling. Jack frowned. The girl was trying to communicate, yet he sensed the urgency behind her words. There was fear, pure and raw, radiating from her like a force. He hesitated. He was trained to be careful, but something in her eyes made him move forward instead of stepping back. "Okay," he said gently. "I'll follow you. Just stay close." She nodded quickly and began leading him through the forest. Jack noticed the strange way the forest seemed to respond to her. The trees bent slightly as she passed, the glowing vines curling around her path as if guiding her. It was subtle, but it made him realize that this world was more alive than any planet he had visited. As they moved deeper, Jack asked, "What's wrong? Why are you running?" The girl's eyes darted around nervously. They come. They hurt. My village." Her voice was barely a whisper, but the fear behind it was clear. Jack's chest tightened. He had encountered hostile alien life before, but this was different. This was a child, desperate and scared, leading him into the unknown. His hand instinctively rested on the side of his weapon, though he had no intention of using it unless necessary. After what felt like an eternity navigating the twisting paths of the forest, they arrived at her village. What he saw made his heart drop. The settlement was in ruins. Crystalline homes that should have glowed softly in harmony were cracked and shattered. Fires smoldered in the remains of once beautiful structures, sending smoke curling into the air. Aliens, small, humanoid figures with shimmering skin and wide eyes, lay scattered across the ground, some unconscious, some moving weakly, and others tending to the injured. The girl, he now knew her name was Lyra, ran ahead to help a small alien child trapped under debris. Jack moved quickly, lifting the crystal beams with careful precision. Lyra's eyes met his, gratitude and fear mingling in her gaze. "Thank you," she whispered, but there was no time for more. "They're still coming," she said urgently. "You must help us, or they will kill us all." Jack frowned. "Who's coming?" She shook her head, unable to explain more. But her trembling hands, the panic in her voice, and the way the other villagers looked at him made it clear. These people had been attacked, hunted, and they were barely holding on. Jack felt a surge of anger. He had trained for combat, for danger, but this was a senseless cruelty. He would not let it happen, Not here, not now. He began to assess the situation. The villagers were injured, scattered, and unarmed. The attacking force had not yet arrived, but based on Lyra's fear, it would be soon. Jack took charge, moving quickly and efficiently. He instructed the aliens to hide the injured and move children to safer areas. He used his scanning device to detect approaching threats, his military training kicking in naturally. Lyra followed him closely, pointing out hidden paths and weak spots in the village's structures. Her knowledge of the terrain was invaluable. Together, they managed to move the injured into a partially collapsed structure that could serve as a temporary shelter. The small building hummed with energy from the crystals embedded in its walls, and Jack realized that the architecture itself could be used as a defense if they acted quickly. Minutes later, the first signs of the attackers appeared. Shadows moving through the forest. Alien soldiers, sleek and predatory, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Jack felt his heart race, but he steadied himself. This was what he was trained for. This was where humans could make a difference. The attackers advanced slowly, methodically, expecting the villagers to panic or flee. But Jack and Lyra had other plans. He whispered instructions to her, and she ran quietly through the forest, creating diversions and guiding the remaining villagers to safer positions. Jack realized something remarkable. The attackers were not used to intelligent resistance from the villagers. They expected an easy target, but the humans' strategic thinking, combined with Lyra's intimate knowledge of the terrain, gave them an edge. They could predict the attackers' movements, lay traps with minimal resources, and even create illusions using the reflective crystals of the forest. As the first skirmish began, Jack could feel his adrenaline surging. He moved with precision, directing the villagers, setting up barriers, and using the glowing crystal shards as makeshift weapons. He had never felt so connected to a place before. It was as if the planet itself was responding to his presence, lending him strength, energy, and clarity. Lyra stayed by his side, her small hands occasionally touching his arm in reassurance. Her trust in him was complete, and it filled Jack with a protective determination he had never felt before. These people, these creatures who were not human, needed him, and he would not fail them. The battle was brief, but intense. Using a combination of human tactics and Lyra's knowledge, they managed to drive the attackers back temporarily. Jack knew it was only a matter of time before they returned in greater numbers, but this small victory gave the villagers hope. After the attackers retreated, Jack took a moment to survey the damage. The village was wounded, but not destroyed. Injured villagers were being tended to. Fires were being smothered with water from the glowing streams nearby, and Lyra was comforting the younger children. He approached her and asked gently, "What happened here? Why are they after you?" Lyra's eyes filled with tears again. They want our crystals, our home, my people, my parents. They are gone." Her voice cracked, and Jack felt a sharp pain in his chest. He had expected destruction, but not this, loss so deep, so personal. He placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. "We will fix this. I promise. I don't know how yet, but we will find a way. You are not alone." For a moment, Lyra simply leaned into him, crying quietly. Jack understood that words were not enough. Actions mattered. Survival mattered. Hope mattered. And if he had learned anything in his years as a human explorer, it was that when hope remained, even the darkest situation could be turned around. That night, the village lay silent under the twin moons. Jack stayed on guard, his senses alert for any approaching danger. Lyra slept nearby, exhausted from the day's events, but safe, for now. Jack looked at the shattered homes, the injured villagers, and the silent forest surrounding them. He knew that the coming days would test them all. But he also knew something else. Humanity had a gift the attackers did not expect. Creativity, courage, and the willingness to protect those who could not protect themselves. As he gazed into the glowing forest, he realized that this was more than a mission now. It was a responsibility, a bond between two very different species, and a chance to show that humans could stand for more than exploration or conquest. They could stand for life itself. Jack took a deep breath, readying himself for whatever came next. Somewhere in the shadows, the attackers were gathering, and tomorrow would bring a challenge unlike any he had faced. But he would face it with Lyra by his side, and together they would fight to save a world that had no one else to protect it. The forest hummed softly, a quiet, steady song of life. Jack knew that as long as hope lived, they had a chance. And he would not let that hope die, not while he drew breath. The twin moons cast a pale glow over the village, illuminating the jagged crystal walls and the shattered remains of homes. Jack moved carefully, scanning the forest for any sign of the attackers. Though they had retreated the previous night, he knew it was only a temporary reprieve. Lyra's people were vulnerable, and the humans' ingenuity would be tested in ways no one could predict. Lyra stirred nearby, her small hand brushing against his arm. She had spent most of the night comforting injured children, ensuring the weak and frightened were tended to. Jack looked at her and saw a mix of sorrow and determination. She was small, fragile in appearance, but inside her burned a fire stronger than most he had ever seen. "They will come back," she whispered, almost to herself. "They always come back." Jack nodded. "Then we'll be ready. We'll use everything we have and more. You're not alone, Lyra. Not anymore." The day began with careful preparation. Jack assessed the remaining structures and the villagers' abilities. Though they were a small group, they were clever, resilient, and fiercely loyal to one another. Lyra helped him understand their strengths. Some could manipulate the energy in the crystal walls, creating defensive barriers or confusing the senses of intruders. Others were strong and fast, able to lift debris or climb the towering formations to gain vantage points. Jack began assigning tasks. He taught them how to use the forest to their advantage, combining their alien abilities with simple human strategies. They dug small traps in hidden paths, reinforced weak crystal walls, and created signals using reflective surfaces to alert each other of approaching enemies. Lyra watched closely, learning, but also teaching Jack about the nuances of her people's abilities. Together, they formed a plan to protect what remained of the village and give the injured a chance to recover. By mid-afternoon, signs of the attackers began to appear. Shadows flitted through the forest edges, moving with a predator's precision. Jack signaled the villagers to their positions, and everyone prepared quietly. The attackers were confident, expecting an easy victory, but Jack and Lyra had other ideas. When the first group of attackers stepped into the clearing, Jack used the glowing crystals to create a blinding flash. The sudden light disoriented them, causing confusion and hesitation. At the same time, Lyra guided a small team along the upper paths, cutting off retreat routes and forcing the attackers into narrow corridors where their numbers became a disadvantage. Jack moved with calm efficiency, directing villagers, coordinating defenses, and occasionally intervening directly to protect the weakest. His knowledge of human tactics, ambushes, flanking maneuvers, improvised traps, turned the tide. The attackers, unprepared for this combination of human strategy and alien ingenuity, began to falter. Despite their initial fear, the villagers responded with courage. Children and adults alike used the crystal's energy creatively, creating illusions, barriers, and distractions. Jack watched with admiration as they turned what seemed like a hopeless situation into a fight they could survive. Lyra ran from group to group, her voice sharp and commanding when needed, her presence inspiring those around her. Hours passed in a blur of action. When the last attackers retreated, the village was battered but not broken. Jack took a moment to catch his breath, surveying the scene. Injured villagers were being cared for, fires were smothered, and the remaining buildings stood as symbols of resilience. Lyra approached him, her silver hair catching the sunlight, eyes shining with both relief and exhaustion. "We did it," she said softly. "For now." Jack nodded. But he knew this was only the beginning. It's never just for now. We need to plan for what's next. They will come again, and we must be ready. Over the next days, Jack worked tirelessly with the villagers. He taught them how to combine their natural abilities with human strategies, how to fortify their homes, and how to predict enemy movements. Lyra proved an invaluable guide, showing him secret paths, hidden passages, and energy sources within the village that he could have never discovered on his own. Together, they created a network of defenses that was subtle yet formidable. One evening, Jack explored a deeper part of the ruins. He had noticed a faint energy signature beneath a collapsed crystal tower. Moving carefully, he discovered a hidden chamber. Inside, the air was cold, and the light dimmed to a soft glow from crystals embedded in the walls. He saw signs of struggle, scattered belongings, remnants of meals, and markings that told the story of capture and loss. Then he saw them, the village elders. They were weak, bound, and guarded by a small group of attackers who had been left behind. Jack's heart tightened. Lyra's parents. He had suspected the worst, but seeing them in person was a different kind of pain. He approached silently, studying the guards' positions. There were too few to be an impossible task, but he would have to act with precision. Using shadows and the reflective surfaces of the crystals, Jack created a diversion. He moved quickly, disabling the guards without alerting the others. One by one, he freed Lyra's parents and the remaining elders. Their eyes widened in disbelief. First at seeing him, then at the small band of villagers who had fought so courageously. Tears filled Lyra's eyes when she entered the chamber. She rushed forward, embracing her parents, her relief almost palpable. Jack stepped back, giving them space, and felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. This was why he had come. This was why he fought. After ensuring everyone was safe, Jack returned to the village square. The villagers had gathered, exhausted but alive, and Lyra's parents addressed them. They spoke in their melodic language, words of gratitude and encouragement, and Jack realized something extraordinary. The bond between human and alien had already begun to change the villagers' perspective on their world. They were no longer just victims. They were a community capable of defending themselves, capable of hope. Days turned into weeks, and the village began to rebuild. Jack continued training the villagers, helping them strengthen their defenses and teaching them human tactics while learning from their unique abilities. He noticed that the younger children were particularly quick to adapt, blending human ideas with their innate talents in ways that amazed him. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Jack stood with Lyra at the edge of the village. The air was calm, and the forest hummed softly around them. Lyra turned to him, her eyes reflecting both the moons and the glowing village. "Why did you help us?" she asked quietly. Jack looked at her, thinking of the battles, the fear, and the courage he had witnessed. "Because it's the right thing to do," he replied, "because no one deserves to be hunted for being who they are. Because hope, because life, is worth protecting." Lyra smiled faintly, a smile mixed with sorrow and relief. "Humans are strange," she said softly. "But maybe that is why you can do what we cannot." Jack chuckled, a quiet, tired sound. "Maybe. Or maybe we're just lucky to care." The following weeks brought peace, but Jack knew it was fragile. He continued to train the villagers, build alliances with neighboring settlements, and prepare for the inevitable return of their enemies. Yet something remarkable had happened. The villagers were no longer afraid. They had hope, skill, and unity. They had a human by their side, yes, but more importantly, they had each other. One day, Jack and Lyra explored the surrounding forest together. They walked in silence, enjoying the quiet hum of life all around them. Jack had begun to understand the subtle rhythms of this world, how it responded to the villagers, and how humans could complement it rather than dominate it. They reached a cliff overlooking a glowing river. Jack knelt and looked down at the flowing light so different from anything on Earth. Lyra joined him, her hand brushing against his. He felt a quiet bond, not just of trust, but of something deeper, a shared responsibility for this fragile, beautiful world. "Will they come again?" Lyra asked. "Maybe," Jack replied, "but we'll be ready. Together we can face anything." Her eyes shone with gratitude and something more, respect, admiration, and a quiet trust. Jack realized that their bond went beyond human and alien. It was about courage, hope, and the choice to protect life wherever it existed. The twin moons reflected in the river below, casting a soft glow over the rebuilt village. Jack knew there would be challenges ahead, but for the first time, he felt a sense of purpose that went beyond exploration or duty. He was here for a reason, not to conquer, not to claim, but to protect, to stand for life, and to inspire hope in those who had none. The forest hummed around them, alive and watchful. And as Jack looked at Lyra and the village below, he understood that this world, fragile and beautiful, had become more than just a mission. It was a promise that courage, ingenuity, and compassion could bridge even the vastest distances between species. And in that quiet, glowing night, with the twin moons watching over them, Jack felt a rare, profound peace. The village was safe. The people were learning to defend themselves, and the bond between human and alien had been forged in fire, tears, and hope. Jack knew the future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Together, they would face whatever came next. Together, they would survive. And together, they would show that even in a galaxy full of dangers, hope, courage, and humanity could shine brighter than any crystal in the forest.